I was incarcerated for 28 years. I robbed a gas station and killed a hard-working immigrant. I can genuinely look at you and tell you, bro, I love you. Trust the process, bro. It's gonna be okay.
Dante was just supposed to be a statistic, just another number, another person fallen victim to the system. But he decided to change that. After being sentenced to life without parole, he changed the story by reforming himself and showing him that there is even a way, even if it doesn't seem like there is. So in this video, you hear not only about his journey, but also his passions, his struggles, and who he is trying to become as a person today. Well, Dante, thank you so much for taking the time to not only be here, but share your story, who you are as a person, and how you're trying to be better every single day. So firstly, just want to take the time to understand who are you as a person, and what is your story?
Person, I am a husband, I'm a father. I'm from Compton, California, and unfortunately, I spent 28 years incarcerated for a crime that I committed when I was 16 years old. I received a sentence of life without the possibility of parole, plus 16 years. And my mother was a drug addict and in and out of prison her entire life. My father was involved in gangs, and the gang that I ultimately joined when I was a young teenager. And so I found myself incarcerated for a very serious crime of taking another human being's life. At that time, I didn't really have any tools or understanding of how I was supposed to be acting. So I dove deeper into the ignorance that I was living in.
So tell me a bit more about when you went through that journey and you went through being incarcerated for nearly almost 3 decades. What does being true to yourself mean?
That's a good question. Being true to yourself means having a set of values and honoring those values as much as you can. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's gonna be 100% with all the goodness that they may have in their heart and their spirits. For me, what that did was that allowed me to have general guideline of what I wanna do in the middle. Because a lot of things happen in the middle. We can have a framework of how we would like our lives to look, but if we don't honor the things that we say we care about, whereas generally, in essence, not honoring our value system.
So what was the things that motivated you when you were younger, and how do those motivations still stand now?
Well, I think now, like then and now, I want the same thing. Connections motivate me. Like my family motivates me. The people that I connect with and then become my family, because my personality, if I invite you into my life and I tell you you're my friend, or I call you my brother, I genuinely mean that. And oftentimes that has been to my detriment since I was a little kid. At the end of the day, it's kind of why I was motivated to continue to do things that I knew were wrong. Because once I had that powerful connection with those that were a part of the gang that I was representing, I became a people pleaser as a young kid, because I was constantly trying to connect with those around me. And those that were around me weren't really always in the mental space to give me what I needed as a child. What every child needs: security, focus, somebody who encourages them. All these little basic things that a kid needs. I wasn't getting those things in most of the households that I grew up in, right? And so once I was outside and this group of people were always excited to see me, no matter what happened, no matter where I happened to live, when I showed up, they were always happy to see me. And so that made me want to cling to that even tighter, because these people want me around, right? And so coming out of that now, I just recently reconnected with my brother. I was incarcerated for 28 years and I haven't spoken to this brother since 2012. And it's because he was going through some personal things and he did what he needed to do. But my need to connect with my loved ones helped me find my brother. And I found my brother, and all of the disappointment that I was projecting onto him because of the way he was choosing to live his life, for the past, I instantly just seen him. I had to let it go. And I'm happy to say that my brother is right now getting help, right? And so I say all that to say my primary driver is connecting with those that I care about, that I love, and really just the broader community now that I understand what community really means. Like, I can genuinely look at you and tell you, bro, I love you, just on a basic human level, right? Because I don't want to see any harm happen to you. I don't want to see any negative happen to you whatsoever, right? So just on a basic human level, I can look at any human being and say that.
What does finding the values and finding values that you truly care about look like for you? And how did you get there?
First thing I would want young Dante to know is that you are very loved. Your entire family loves you way more than you understand. I was incarcerated in 1995 when I was 16. Up to that point, I had went to different school every single year. I never went to the same school in consecutive years. That was because I was moving around so much, right? And so that affected my self-worth tremendously. Once I did get into the prison institution, I had to learn how to focus on what I could control, not what I couldn't control. Because otherwise, I would be stressed out. I would be sitting here probably with a head full of gray hair right now if I worried about things that I couldn't control. And I had to come to a realization of that at some point because it was very hard for me at first, extremely hard. You can only control what you can and you can only do what you can. So young Dante would have to understand, trust the process, bro. It's gonna be okay.
One thing I've seen is that as you grow older and your values change, the people around you change. And the idea of a friend, what a friend really means, changes. When I was younger, I thought a friend was the most personal person, right? The person that made me feel a certain way. But I realized the people that are actually friends don't make me feel the same way as the people who I'd like to be friends with, right? Those are the people that make me feel a certain way, but when the time comes around, they're not nowhere to be seen. In your opinion, what has friendship and what is the meaning of friendship been for you?
It's everything. Like I said, if I tell you you're my friend, I mean that with every fiber of my being. I didn't really analyze what I thought a friend was, right? And when we grew up and I started hanging out with the gang members, we went to junior high school. We were still friends, but I was with the gang members. Got to high school, we were still friends, but I was even deeper in now. I was with the gang members. But one day, one of my homies seen my friend and decided to pick on him at school. My friend wasn't the punk per se, but he wasn't just a gang member, right? My homie got mad because I didn't help him fight my friend. And my friend beat him up. And he tried to bring me up on charges in the neighborhood because I didn't help him. But I'm like, this is my friend. We grew up together. He's from the neighborhood, our friend, everybody knows each other, right? Yeah. So it's like, he was fighting Rasan. What I'm supposed to hit, jump Rasan? No. Like, so whatever. And nothing ever happened to me, but what I'm saying is, even though I wasn't really honoring Rasan the same I did when we were small children, before I got into the gang life, I still looked at him like, I don't want to see any harm happen to you. This is my friend.
But what strength do you find in community? And did you find that same strength when you were part of a gang?
So on some level, I thought I found that in the gang life, that strength, that love in community. And I'm gonna say this, but I don't want this to be misconstrued, because there is some genuine love and respect within that culture. There are some genuine relationships in that culture, because everybody that's there, their heart's not really in it. A lot of us now, I go back, sometimes I tell them, I say, man, 20 gangsters in the whole prison system. Everybody else is hurt people trying to figure out how to process the trauma that we've been taught not to talk about. That's what the rest of us are. Because obviously, if you're in a gang, you're doing destructive things, you're tearing community down. It's the opposite of community. But that's not the primary factor of gang membership. There are some human elements there, right? Because we are human beings. But I'm very careful to say that, because I don't want anybody to misconstrue and think that I'm saying there's anything good about gang membership, because there's nothing good about gang membership. However, there are people there that want better for themselves, that just don't really know how to find that better. And so the difference that I find in that community, it's predicated on false respect. It's predicated on prison is predicated on false respect, right? Everybody thinks it's real respect, but it's not. I don't want to bump into you, because if I bump into you or say something crazy to you, now it could be a riot. So I'm being respectful to you out of fear versus because this is where I am, where my heart is. And so building community now with people who you get there faster, you get there more efficient if you go together. Kind of like how geese fly away. They fly away in formation for a reason. They stay together for a reason. And these are birds with little brains. We got these computers and these things, I don't know why we can't figure out, just as a people, not black or white or whatever, like human beings. If we go forward together, the majority of us, because there are going to always be detractors, right? If the majority of us go forward together, who could stop us? So community, when you're talking about from a pro-social standpoint and from an anti-social standpoint, There are elements that exist in both, but nothing positive and negative can exist in the same thing.
What did 16-year-old Dante get wrong about the process that is life? What do you think that they did correctly?
What I did wrong was I allowed my external circumstances to dictate my life. I allowed my external circumstances to contradict who I was, what I felt. Like I say, I tell people now all the time, man, I'm not a gangster now, never was a gangster, but I was playing the part and I could have got an Oscar because I was playing into it. Look at all this crap.
Right.
This is a part of it. I don't want this. This is a part of it. This was a part of my survival. It's all over me, right? But it was calculated. It was very calculated. Everything that I did to survive inside of prison was calculated. And I wish when I got wrong as a 16-year-old, I didn't trust my intelligence. I didn't believe that I was going to be okay. I thought I had to make my situation change. And I did make my situation change, but it didn't change how I wanted to change, right? It changed for the worst. So, man, like I said, I would just tell young 16-year-old Dante just to trust the process, man. I know it seems dark now, I know it seems gloomy, but you only have this limited amount of years to be a kid. Don't worry about things you can't do anything about. And when you step into your adulthood, you're gonna have a long time to have all these adult issues that you're trying to pile on your plate as a child. So I would just tell, what I done wrong was, like I said, was not trust myself and my intelligence. What I did right, man, I stayed in school. No matter where I moved to, no matter, I was in 11th grade when I was incarcerated and I was in my rightful grade. I always did, school wasn't really that hard for me, so I always did enough to make sure I passed. And then sometimes I would leave in the middle of a school year and be in another school. So I think I did that right. And because I now understand that education is the key to everything. No matter what your situation is, if you educate yourself, you will be whatever it is that you are trying to focus on being. So just focusing on education. And I wish I was able to have the space to express how I was feeling about what was going on around me. I wasn't encouraged to talk about how it felt to have a mother on crack cocaine and my friends knew her. I didn't talk about then how embarrassing that was. That's why I had so many fights in elementary school. I framed it up as a source of pride when I would talk about my dad being a G from the neighborhood that I used to represent, right? But really, I wanted my dad to take me to my baseball game. I wanted my dad to take me to Magic Mountain. I didn't want to be in the car with him while he drove over here and did whatever it is he was doing with his homies. But I was there. So I wish I had a space to talk about, I wish it was welcome to talk about how life was affecting me. And I didn't have to internalize it all and then it exploding on the wrong person, an innocent person. Not that it would have made it right or anything, but I didn't kill a gang member. I robbed a gas station and killed a hard-working immigrant that his family had to go back to Nicaragua when he was no longer with us. So the pain that I've caused is far beyond anything that I can even possibly comprehend right now. That's why it's super important for me to stay in service, super important for me to show up how I was supposed to show up so that I could live in some honor of what I've taken away from so many.
Now being reformed, now having understood, having felt the things you felt, what does empathy mean to you?
The bottom line is, I wish I had an outlet, and just maybe my outlet wouldn't have been the person that I victimized. Love. Empathy means that I can step outside of myself for even just a second and realize how my actions affect others. And when I recognize someone going through something, even if I didn't cause it, I could still take the time to stop, pause, and see if that human being is okay. For me, that could be everything for somebody. It could be something so simple as just asking somebody, are they okay? And normally the general answer, but someone could be, no, I'm not. And then I could be there to listen. I might not have an answer in the world, but just being able to be there with that person in that moment could mean so much more to that person than I would ever even possibly be able to understand. So just showing love. Again, I could show up these people, right? Anybody. show up with love and concern and care, because that's what I would want for myself, right? The golden rule, right? Whatever, you treat others how you want to be treated. And so I strive daily to do that. I fall short sometimes, a lot of times, but now when I fall short, I'm able to recognize that and investigate that. And possibly if I harm somebody, say, hey, look, I apologize for X, Y, and Z. This is what was going on. Whatever, I can be in a present space where I can understand how my actions or someone else's actions affects other people. And so to me, empathy is just love and just being there for other human beings.
What does the best version of Dante look like?
Man, the best version of Dante. I'm living the best version of Dante right now. What that looks like is me waking up every single day that I'm blessed to be able to wake up, and taking some time to take in my blessings, take in the fact that I have so much love in my life, and I'm able to respect that by the way I live my life every single day. Again, I'm not trying to project I'm out here with it all figured out, or I have it some perfect existence or anything like that. But what I do understand and what I do respect is that I'm not waking up in that cell. So with that, it's my responsibility, it's on me to show up with integrity, to show up with love, to show up with support, to show up with willingness to help others, because that's just who I am. That's who I was as a little kid. I didn't know it. But more importantly, like I said, I just really want people who have a similar experience to mine, growing up all the way through, to know that they have a tremendous amount of value. And so the best version of Dante is me showing up every single day as me and connecting with people, talking to people, seeing where they are, seeing what they want to do. And I often find myself very fulfilled at the end of the day, because I set out to do and show up the way I want to show up. One of my philosophies I have now is like, who am I to say how anybody should be living their lives, as long as they're not hurting anybody? If you're not hurting anybody, like, who am I to judge how you decide to live your life? And I think at the end of the day, I'm going to continue to grow and educate myself so that I could deal with life as it comes my way. Because life, I used to hear that little saying when people say life be life. When I was in there, right, I was like, that's stupid. But being here, life be life, that's for sure.
But what was the turning point in prison, in incarceration, where you're like, I'm not doing this anymore. I need to get better, and I'm going to get better, however long it takes. When did that happen? How did that happen? And what shaped it all?
I believe that happened in 2018. So I was resentenced from life without the possibility of parole to essentially 25 to life in 2015, right? And so I came back to the prison in my mind. I'm gonna step back from gang stuff. You guys do this, do that. I'll be right here if you need me for anything. I'm here, but I'm trying to go home. Manipulating, right? And it wasn't until after that, in little after 2018, I caught a staff assault. And that was because one of my homies got into it with an officer. And if one of your homies get into it, everybody gets into it, right? And that happened. I went to the SHU, did a SHU, and I came, and while I was there, I'm sitting there, man, what are you doing? And when I came out, the counselor called me into his office. And he asked me, he said, Green, what's your problem? And I said, what do you mean? He said, why are you being an idiot? He said, you were resentenced, man. You don't realize that? You need to be on a lower level. And I said, I can't. So in prison, there's a point system. And I had way too many points. But there's a clause that says if you don't get a write-up for a year, your counselor can override you to a lower level. And so he told me, he said, look, man, give me a year clean, and I'm going to get you an override to a level 3, which is a lower level. And when I went back into my cell, I was really just thinking, I have a real chance. I can get to a level 3. And at that point, that's when I just bought in to where I need to drop my manipulation mindset and say, you know what, I have to drill down this thing and figure out what's going on, because there has to be a reason why this process exists. See, before, I never trust processes. Oh, that doesn't pertain to me. I'm not a drug addict. Why I gotta go to NA? They were mandating me to go to NA because I smoked weed when I was a kid, right? So they say, you smoke weed, you got a drug problem. But in my mind, I've never done drugs besides weed, obviously. Weed is a drug, right? Let's make that clear. But in my mind, I'm thinking heroin, cocaine, things like stuff like that, right? Right. And so the more I started to actually participate and get involved, the more I started to realize, oh, these things do apply to me. I may not be an addict per se from drug substances, but I'm addicted to criminality. I'm addicted to every day I woke up, I was thinking about how I was going to come up. What's going on today? Or who are we going to go do something to in the yard? It was all criminal. I was addicted to that. And I was addicted to it because I did not want to lose my position with this new family that I have formed. It all comes back to me wanting that connection. And so I would say it clicked in 2018, and I really dove in. And I started taking college courses. Any self-help course that there was I enrolled in it. I had my wife send me stuff in the mail, and I was just trying to dig as deep as I possibly could to try to figure out the 3 simple things that the parole board wants you to explain, which is insight into how you became a person that can hurt people, what's your remorse and what does that look like, and what your change look like. Those are the 3 things they want to know. It comes in a series of questions, but at the end of the day, those are the 3 things that they need to know. And so I would say 2018, I really committed to myself. I said, you know what? I have to let that go because that's destructive. I was trying to straddle the fence and hang around as the big homie, but you see where they led me into a shoe program. And so I completely cut my ties and really dove headfirst in and committed to this process. And so I would definitely just nail it down to 2018 is when I really started to take my life seriously.
What did that gang ideology look like? What does it truly look like? And now being a former gang member, having already gone through the process, and now completely being reformed, what does unlearning mean to you? And how did you learn through the process as a whole?
I think for me, it's a little tricky with that question because in my heart of hearts, I've always known that I wasn't a gang member. I've always knew that I was fake. It became me, and I moved forward with that in my life every day. But I used to sit on our little bench because we would claim benches on the prison yard, places where we would be at, whatever. And I would be sitting there sometimes, and my homies would be talking. And they be talking about just nonsense. And sometimes I literally grab my head and be like, shut the fuck up. I don't want to hear that. What are y'all talking about? Let's talk about getting some money. And then most of the time, like I said, I was fake important, right? So they're not gonna really say nothing crazy. Fuck you telling them to shut up because I was fake important. And so you can't really do that. But it was like, I always knew that I didn't belong. I always knew that that wasn't me, right? But I stayed there because of that connection. I didn't want to lose it. Now I'm in prison, and these members, that's how I'm viewing them, right? These are my family members. And unlearning a lot of that stuff, on one hand, it's extremely difficult because that's the way that I've been living for the vast majority of my life, even before incarceration. And so coming to the honest realization that the way I've been living my life is bullshit is a hard pill to swallow. But and this is the but for me, I always knew it. I always told myself, this is bullshit. I was over it for so long. So to a degree, I still have some of those belief systems in here laying dormant, and sometimes stay a little bit. I allow myself to say, man, this motherfucker don't know who I am. He playing games with my intelligence right now. Then as soon as I said it, I'm like, who are you? You ain't nobody. You ain't gonna do nothing. You ain't gonna hurt a fly. What are you talking about? So what? You frustrated right now. Get over it. And then that's when I start texting my wife. telling my wife, look, I'm finna leave in a minute. I'm mad. But she would tell him, look, baby, just stay there. It's all right. He's coming. You never know what could have happened. So she's bringing me back, right? But I'm allowing some of my old belief system, the devil and the angel, right? I'm allowing some of this devil to say, fuck this fool. This fool playing with your time. I ain't got nothing else to do. This was my whole day. But F this fool, right? But then the angel was saying, what are you talking about? This is a great opportunity for you. This is something that you want to do so that people could stand things a little bit differently. Because people in the community out here in society see people who have done heinous things and believe they should be under a rock somewhere. And if that's their opinion, that's fine, right? But if we can try to get on record to dispel that a little bit, not saying that I'm an exception, I'm what it looks like when person does work on themselves. Sometimes I reference an interview that I seen with Diane Sawyer and the Menendez brothers, and when I'm doing groups. And so in that interview, they were in the county jail clothes, so they were fresh incarcerated, right? But in the interview, they're talking about insight. They're talking about the traumas they went through. They're talking about tools that they had to deal with anger management. They're talking about all kinds of stuff, right? And this is stuff that I was just learning. That was foreign. Insight, all this stuff. I heard the word, but I didn't really know what that meant, right? And that's because these are the tools and the things that their parents were instilling in them growing up, right? They were learning these things. My parents and the people who were taking care of me was busy teaching me how to navigate Compton. When you go to the store, you walk down that street. When you see a killer, you don't talk to killer. You go over here. When you're at the park, this is how. So our parents is teaching us how to survive in these marginalized communities where education is at ground floor. Education sucks, right? And so they're teaching us how to navigate that. When the Menendez brothers' parents is teaching them tools, emotional intelligence, how to process the things that they're going through, right? And so going through all the things that I went through to get to the place I can have the mindset of a citizen and not as a victim, because really I was victimizing myself. As a gang member, I was the biggest victim in the world. All gang members are victims. Got the victim mentality, in my humble opinion. And most of them agree with me when I facilitate. So the way I facilitate groups, I don't mince words. I don't disrespect anybody, but I just say straight how it is, right? And a lot of people appreciate that. Most of the brothers appreciate that. But coming to a place where I can say as a gang member, I had a victim mentality is a huge place to be, because we don't think of ourselves in that way. But really, we complaining all the damn time. Woe is me every day. If it wasn't for bad luck, I wouldn't have no luck. So it's like the mentality that we embrace is one of a victim. And really, we're not victims. We're choosing to be in this. However we chose to get there, whatever contributed or whatever, at the end of the day, you still chose to do whatever it is you chose to do. And so I try to make sure that's highlighted and we move forward knowing that we can move forward. Like, we're not beholden to any decision or choice that we made. You can lock yourself there. Like with the gang, remember, you can walk out of gangs without getting killed. That's a myth. Sure, it might be somebody that's butt hurt, but for the most part, I ain't never knew nobody that got out of a gang that got killed. But we tell ourselves, if I get out, they're gonna do this to me, they're gonna do that to me. But that's because you don't want to get out. You don't want to do the hard work. It's hard work to get to a different belief system, to unlearn those things that I learned through the course of life, just by living life. So at the end of the day, I was able to unlearn a lot of things through a lot of cognitive restructuring programs. Those were the most powerful for me. Standing, I got a choice. So I can think all the crazy stuff I want to think, but I got a choice whether I'm going to act on that or not. And so it's not really so much unlearning something, it's really having the courage to be who you want to be and not who everybody else, who the peanut gallery wants you to be. But have the courage to be who you want to be. And that's what I encourage brothers to do all the time. Have the courage to step into the life that you want to live.
When you were going through the process in prison, many of the belief systems and values you had were rooted in the idea of fear and being afraid if X would happen, if you leave this gang, you would be killed. All of these hypotheticals, they were all rooted in just being afraid. So what was 16-year-old Dante afraid of? And what was the thing that feared him the most?
I was afraid of, man, not being accepted. And like I said, that's how I became a people pleaser. And I would do the most extreme things, even in the home. I would clean up the room, wash the dishes. I would do stuff so people would say, "Ooh, he cleans up. We don't even have to tell him. Let's let him stay here. Let's keep him." Instead of in a couple months, I'll be moving somewhere else. And that didn't work. But in the game, when I went out, like I said, they were always happy to see me. But when I fought somebody, when I was willing to just put that gun in my waistband and walk around, so much attaboys and all that stuff that boosts my esteem that was in the ground, I was willing to do whatever it takes to hold on to that. And so now I think it's the same thing. Again, when I tell you if you're my friend, I mean it. And so I say that to say, I'm afraid of being hurt again, right? I don't want to be hurt. I'm afraid of putting, that's why I only got 2 friends. I'm afraid of putting myself out there to be hurt. Even in my partnership with my marriage, my wife, it took a long time. You would think, because I'm in prison, but it took a very long time for me to embrace my wife's love. Because in my mind, every time I have embraced love, it always went away from my mother on down, right? And so I think today that's still like one of my biggest fears, like those connections. And it's a fear now because I'm not willing to do anything to keep those connections. I'm willing to do healthy things and work on things to make sure connections are intact. But I'm no longer willing to sacrifice my happiness and what I want for someone else. I have to be a little selfish in that. And so I do put myself in those positions still because that's a part of life. But I think that's my biggest fear, like not being accepted. And also, what I do for a living is very taxing, right? Because like go inside of there and I give my all to my guys because I want them, if nothing else, me standing there should be inspiration enough. Like this fool can get out. I know I can, but I want what I'm sharing with folks to be impactful. And so being secure in understanding that I know what I'm talking about when I'm sharing information with brothers inside is the fear that drives me now, drives me to continue to study, continue to update my understanding on whatever it is that I'm focused on, right? So yeah, I think just that losing the connection with those that I care about is because it's going to be a hard pill to swallow when it happens.
What is the worst piece of advice that you received in your life and why?
The worst piece of advice that I've received in my life. Oh man, I think I had never thought about this question. And as I'm processing right now through my mental Rolodex, I'm thinking I don't know if it was necessarily advice, but somebody once said to me, while you are going through these groups, don't allow this stuff to change who you are as a person. And I was like, every day changes who I am as a person, let alone I'm embarking on some information that I've never reviewed before. And if I find it impactful, it's going to change who I am. It's going to change my life. And so like tried to clean it up. The conversation went all kinds of places, but I now know he said that because he was still in his manipulation stage. He was still trying to figure out thinking, oh, I can just learn a few things from some groups and go to the board and they're going to let me out. And so like that bad piece of advice did for me, it helped me understand that I need to, if I'm going to be working with people, I need to understand how to meet people where they are. So wherever there's a spectrum and everybody's at different places on that spectrum of change or whatever the case may be. And so I had to learn how to stop projecting my expectations on others. And if I'm gonna be working with people, meet them where they are. And so I met that brother where he was in the days to follow, and it was a good thing. use that bad piece of advice to give me a different perspective. Not judge people for where they are, but meet people where they are, and then work from there. So that's what I can think of. I can't really think of a specific piece of advice that was just, because if I hear terrible stuff, I honestly throw it out. I don't retain it. That like I don't got enough space in my brain for that stuff. I try to keep in here what I'm gonna use, and if it doesn't make sense to me, straight out the other ear.
There's two versions of you, right? That you should make happy at the end of your life. It's not your parents. It's the 8-year-old and the 80-year-old version of yourself. So do you think that what you're doing right now makes both of those people happy in life?
At the end of the day, I used to tell myself, even before I thought I was gonna get out of prison, if I ever get out of prison, I'm never coming back in here. But through the process of change, as I was facilitating groups and I seen and felt the effect that I was having on the brothers, that's when it came clear to me that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And so yeah, 8-year-old me and the 80-year-old me would be very proud of me, because I spend my days connecting with people and figuring out how to connect with them better.
Dante, thank you so much for taking the time to share your story, share your insights, but share what you are as a person. Is there anything you'd like to say before we close?
Yeah, I would like to say that you're not whoever we are as human beings. We're not as bad as the worst decisions that we've made. I won't say mistakes that we made, but the worst decisions and choices that we've made. We can always start anew. We can always have a rebirth. And so I would just encourage everybody who feels marginalized or whatever, figure out what it is you want for yourself and go after it with no shame, no fear. Just go after it with love and understanding, and trust the process, and it'll be okay. Thank you.